Most people fear being alone. They fill every silence with noise, every empty moment with distraction. But what if I told you that your inability to be alone is the very thing keeping you weak? Miyamoto Musashi, history's most feared swordsman, understood something most never will. He won over 60 duels to the death, not one loss. Yet his secret wasn't just skill with a blade, it was his relationship with solitude. While others sought crowds and comfort, Musashi deliberately chose isolation. He spent years in caves, mountains, places where no voice could reach him except his own. And in that silence, he became unstoppable. Here's what nobody tells you about solitude. It's not about running away from the world. It's about running toward yourself. Most people can't handle 5 minutes alone with their own thoughts. They panic, they reach for their phones, turn on music, call someone, anything to avoid the confrontation, because being truly alone forces you to face something terrifying, who you actually are when nobody's watching. Musashi called this the path of walking alone, not because he hated people, but because he understood that mastery demands it. Every hour you spend seeking validation from others is an hour stolen from your own development. Every moment you waste comparing yourself to someone else is a moment you could have spent sharpening your edge. Think about your typical day. How many decisions do you make based on what others might think? What to wear, what to post, what to say? You're not living your life, you're performing it. Musashi rejected this entirely. He wore simple clothes, sometimes none at all. He carried a wooden sword when others carried steel. He arrived late to duels just to disturb his opponent's mental state. None of it was for show, all of it was strategic. But here's where it gets interesting. Solitude isn't just about being physically alone. You can be surrounded by people and still practice it. It's a mental state, a decision to stop letting external noise dictate your internal world. When Musashi wrote his final work, the Dokudo, he was dying. He had 1 week left. And what did he choose to leave behind? 21 principles for walking alone. Not techniques for winning fights, not strategies for defeating enemies, principles for mastering yourself. Because he knew that's the only battle that truly matters. One principle stands out: do not seek pleasure for its own sake. Read that again. In a world obsessed with comfort, entertainment, instant gratification, Musashi said, ignore all of it. Why? Because pleasure makes you soft, it makes you dependent. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you're choosing weakness over strength. Another principle cuts even deeper. Do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. He's not just talking about objects. He's talking about relationships that drain you, habits that serve no purpose, thoughts that hold you back. Most people are buried under the weight of things they should have released years ago. They wonder why they can't move forward while clinging to anchors they tied to themselves. The modern world makes this harder than ever. You're never truly alone anymore. Your phone buzzes, notifications flash, someone always wants your attention, your time, your energy, and you give it freely because you've been conditioned to believe that connection equals value. But Musashi would tell you that's backwards. Your value doesn't come from how many people know you. It comes from how deeply you know yourself. Here's what happens when you embrace real solitude. At first, it's uncomfortable. Your mind races. You feel anxious, restless, maybe even afraid. That's normal. You're withdrawing from an addiction you didn't know you had. The addiction to external validation, to constant stimulation, to never being alone with who you actually are. But push through that discomfort, stay in the silence, and something shifts. You start noticing things you never saw before, patterns in your behavior, weaknesses you've been avoiding, strengths you never developed because you were too busy seeking approval instead of building competence. Musashi spent entire years this way, training alone, thinking alone, creating alone. And when he finally emerged, he was unlike anyone else. Not because he was born special, but because he chose a path most people are too afraid to walk. So the question isn't whether solitude is powerful. History proves it is. The question is whether you're brave enough to face what you'll find when you stop running from yourself. Let's be honest, most people won't do this. They'll read about solitude, nod their heads, maybe even feel inspired for a moment. Then they'll go right back to their phones, their distractions, their comfortable numbness. Why? Because solitude demands something most people aren't willing to give: honesty. Real solitude forces you to confront the parts of yourself you've been avoiding, the dreams you gave up on, the potential you've wasted, the person you promised you'd become but never did. That's terrifying. It's easier to stay busy, to keep scrolling, to fill every moment with noise so you never have to face those questions. But here's what they don't tell you about avoiding yourself. Every day you run from that confrontation, you get weaker. Not physically, mentally, your decision-making deteriorates. Your confidence erodes, you start needing permission for everything, validation for every choice, approval for every move. You become a passenger in your own life. Musashi saw this pattern in other warriors, men who relied on their lords for direction, on their schools for validation, on their reputations for confidence. When those external supports disappeared, they crumbled. But Musashi, he built everything from within. His strength wasn't borrowed, it was forged in silence, tested in isolation, refined through brutal self-examination. Think about your average day. How many decisions do you make based on what others might think? What to wear, what to post, what opinions to share? You're not living, you're auditioning, constantly performing for an audience that isn't even paying attention because they're too busy performing for you. Now imagine living differently. Imagine making every choice based solely on what serves your growth, your purpose, your truth. No consideration for likes, comments, approval, or applause. Just pure alignment between who you are and what you do. That's the freedom Solitude offers, but it comes at a price. The price is loneliness. At first, when you stop seeking external validation, people notice. Some will call you arrogant, others will say you've changed, and they won't mean it as a compliment. Friends who bonded with you over complaints and distractions will drift away. That's the cost of walking alone. But what do you gain? Everything that actually matters. Clarity about your direction, confidence in your decisions, competence in your skills, the ability to sit with yourself and feel peace. Not the artificial peace that comes from distraction, but real peace that comes from alignment. Musashi's final principle cuts deepest. Do not fear death. Most people read that and think he's talking about physical death. He's not. He's talking about the death of who you were, the death of your old identity, the death of the person everyone expected you to be. That death is necessary. You can't become someone new while clinging to who you were. Every time you choose solitude over social approval, a part of your old self dies. Every time you sit in silence, instead of reaching for your phone, a part of your addiction dies. Every time you make a decision based on your truth, instead of others' opinions, a part of your weakness dies. This is the path. It's not comfortable, it's not popular, but it's real. Here's the part nobody mentions. Once you've walked this path long enough, something shifts. The loneliness fades. You stop needing people to complete you because you've become complete on your own. And ironically, that's when the right people start appearing. Not people who need you to stay small so they feel better about themselves, but people who respect your path because they're walking their own. Musashi spent years alone, yet his influence reached across centuries. He needed no one, yet everyone needed what he discovered. That's the paradox. The less you need external validation, the more valuable you become to others. The more time you spend alone, the more powerful your presence becomes when you choose to engage. So start small. 1 hour of genuine solitude. No phone, no music, no distractions, just you and your thoughts. See what comes up, notice what you've been avoiding, feel the discomfort, then do it again tomorrow and the next day. Build the habit of facing yourself until it becomes as natural as breathing. The path of walking alone isn't about isolation, it's about integration, integrating all the fragmented parts of yourself into something whole, something unbreakable, something real. Musashi proved it's possible. Now you have to decide if you're willing to prove it for yourself.